Hi everyone, it's me again. Thank you for joining into this crash course of Revit plugin development, and we're gonna go through the basics and key items that you need to know. So without any further ado, let's create new projects. So of course you need to download Visual Studio, and when you're creating the project, the two things that we need to have in mind is the project templates. If you're creating the Revit plugin, which has only the, let's say, brains, the logic beneath it, and no windows pops up, no user interface will be needed, therefore you can go to class library. If you're gonna create some windows, some user interface, dialog boxes, and so on, then you need to target WPF class library. As I'm creating a plugin which will have user interface, I'm gonna choose WPF class library. Now let's add project name, location, and framework is .NET 8 because Revit starting from 2025 works with this version of framework. Once we have created the Visual Studio project for our plugin, the first thing we need to do is to add references to our Revit. So therefore we have these dependencies, hit right click, and we can add project reference. Go to browse and navigate to your Revit folder and find Revit API DLL. This is the one. Add it up, and now we also need to add RevitUI DLL. This is the one. Add those two dependencies or references, and now our code can actually reference to the Revit API, and we can continue on creating our plugin. So this is a key step that you have to do in every project or every plugin you're gonna code. Now let's begin with using statements. They basically tell our program, hey, we are going to be using features from the Revit database, the Revit user interface, and some general .NET functionalities. You will almost always need these when creating Revit plugin. Next up, we have the section namespace in GUI. This namespace is simply a way to organize our code. Think of it like a folder on your computer. It helps keep our code tidy, especially as your plugins get more complex. For a simple plugin, you can give it a name related to your project or company. Now, this is a super important part. The transaction line is crucial. In Revit, whenever you want to make changes to the model, like adding a wall, changing a parameter, you need to do it within something called a transaction. This line tells Revit that our command will handle its own transactions manually. It's a bit like telling Revit, I'm about to do some work, please lock things down so no one else interferes. And then we have a public class ExternalCommand. This line defines our actual command. So ExternalCommand is the name we've given our plugin. You can name it whatever you like. The IExternalCommand part is very important because it tells Revit that this class is designed to be an external command that Revit can recognize and run. Without it, Revit wouldn't know what to do with our code. And finally, we get to the heart of what our plugin does. The execute method is where all the action happens. When you click your plugin button in Revit, this is the code that runs. So task dialog show is what actually creates that hello Revit pop-up message you're gonna see. So task dialog show is built-in Revit function that lets us display simple messages to the user. The first part in GUI is the title of the dialog box, and hello Revit, it's the message itself. Now return result. This line simply tells Revit that our command runs successfully. If something went wrong, we could return result failed. Now we can continue on building our solution. So there were no errors, you're gonna see the build succeeded message, and the DLL file will be exported to the bin debug folder of your project. And we're gonna look for the, in my case, IngenuMind DLL. Now Revit has to access this file so the plugin would work. And that is being done usually by the manifest file or .addin file. So we're gonna create one. Let's go to this location of Revit, program data, Autodesk, Revit addins, and the version of your Revit. We're gonna create a new txt file. I'm gonna call it IngenuMind. And let's just simply paste this code from the description of this video. Now the important thing is the assembly path. So this is where you need to copy the path to your DLL. So let's go back to this location and copy the path of that DLL. We can paste it up over here. You can create a guide, which can be done by the Visual Studio itself. Create guide, new, copy, and you can paste it over here. Now, full class name is important one. So IngenuMind is the namespace, and the external command is actually the command we're gonna activate it. So if I would look into my code, we're gonna look at IngenuMind and the class external command, which is gonna be triggered, and the whole code will be activated. Now you can add some vendor ID and description. Let's save it up, or rather save as .addin. Now I can take a look that I have txt file and addin file. So txt file is no longer needed, and we're gonna work only with addin file. So we just created our manifest or .addin file. We can go now to Revit and test our solution. Now you get this message saying that, hey, we have this add-on that we could not verify. What do you want me to do? So let's always load it up and we can see how it works. I'm gonna create a new project. And under the add-ins tab, as we did not create any ribbon buttons, any user interface, you're gonna see this external tools, and this our class that we activated. So we have the IngenuMind as a title and the message saying hello Revit. There you go, you successfully created your first plugin in Revit. So keep focused and let's create some, or rather expand the functionality of this plugin in the upcoming series.